Evening, gents. So after watching a couple of Brother Maynard's videos, I thought maybe I'd do likewise. So this is an introduction to my MSU army. So I played at a tournament over the weekend. So we had April Fool's weekend. Tournament was held in Johannesburg yesterday. So as some of you might know, there's been a rather lengthy little thread on the Demonic Legions forum talking about an MSU army, and I spent a fortune of that thread telling people that it was simply not viable. After about 5 pages of this, I actually got quite intrigued by the idea, so I decided to bring this not viable army to this event. One of those things that was an issue is this army really, I don't believe, is capable of playing the Watchtower. Good news is this event had a modified version of the Watchtower, almost a watch hill. So you had to take a hill, which is a much simpler notion than knocking someone out of a building. That's it. Let's look at what we've actually got in front of us here. So it's a 2,000 point list, and as you can see, all of my units are tiny in the extreme. I don't have a single unit with a 3rd rank, and even then most of them are simply sitting with a 2nd. So for the range component, I'm sitting with 2 units of 6 flamers and 2 units of 3 screamers. Should let me do a lot of range damage and control a fair amount of the board. The nice thing is the flamers double as it's a combat unit, do a fantastic job of problem solving, and the screamers are flyers that can just get in the way, which is always valuable. Then of course for the hitters and flankers, we're sitting with 2 units of 5 fleshhounds, who are far more resilient than they look. We have a tiny demonette unit with the Banner of Ecstasy, whose entire purpose is to die in glory, but to do it in 2 turns instead of 1. The Bloodletters are actually intended as a sacrificial unit to shove into the center of his army, do a whole lot of damage, and then get dogpiled and died. I didn't actually see an opportunity to do that sort of this tournament, but that was the theory anyways. 13 Bloodletters. They actually have a champion, which is a rarity in my armies. And of course they're sitting with a herald, because, well, really, why wouldn't you? So they're sitting as a nice counterpunch unit. Similar story with the Plague Bearers. They've got the banner allowing them to reroll to wound. Again, fantastic little counterpunch unit. And then of course we have redirecting and interference troops, and this army is littered with them. So we've got the Screamers that can run interference, we've got the Furies that run interference. In a pinch, the Fleshhounds can run interference and delaying. And if you really need to, the Flamers. There's so many throwaway units in this army, there's actually just nothing to really get a handle on. Then lastly we've got a single TH Wizard, who's a Beast Mage, Spellbreaker, and I just love the Law of Beasts. It's useful at every range. It's useful at the beginning of the game when you want to control people through things like Savage Beast, through Curse of Unraher. It's useful once you get stuck in with Wizard's Wild Form, with Savage Beast of Horus. It's just such a versatile little law. And then lastly we're sitting with the Icon of Sundering. Is what my BSB is carrying. That's the Nurgle BSB. He's also got a breath weapon, and that's just because I absolutely loathe getting bogged down by big magic, especially by things like the Bloody Frog. And just dropping him to effectively a level 2 really just puts a huge crimp in his style. So that's what we're looking at, and from here on we dive into the first game, which is a game against vampire counts. Right, so game 1, Vampires. And he's sitting with a very character-heavy army. Sitting with a Vampire Lord, level 3, who has basically been kitted out to tear a hole in the world. He's sitting with 7 attacks. He's sitting Strength 5. He's got Quick Blood, so that's ASF, gives him rerolls to hit. He's got Red Fury, so he's getting extra attacks off everything he kills. And just to make my heart glad, he's got the other Trickster's Shard, so he's going to go straight through my ward saves. So he really can walk through the entire army. He then also has a White King sitting in that skeleton block, and a Vampire, and he's got 2 other Necromancers. It's a lot of magic. He's got the Mortis engine, which is the first time I've faced one. He's got a corpse cart, and he's got a whole lot of skeletons, a whole lot of zombies, a small unit of zombies right at the back, and what looks like knights but is actually a small unit of direwolves on the left hand side. My deployment, as you'll see, is moderately standard for me. I've got my Furies right in the front, just in front of my Bloodletters. I want them to be able to get out and get annoying as quick as possible. I've got the Fleshhounds up close. Again, I want them to get up, I want them to get irritating. The Fiend just behind, I know the Fleshhounds are going to move forward, so it's going to be opened up. We've got a unit of Flamers on each flank being protected, and a unit of Screamers doing likewise. So the Demonettes I want to be a little further forward so they can make use of the Banner of Ecstasy. The Plague Bearers with my BSB, again it's a counter-punch unit, so I'm quite happy for it to be sitting behind my lines. And off screen to the right there's a unit of Fleshhounds. So I'm quite happy to basically control him, let him come to me, shoot him, soften him up a bit, and stay the hell away from that skeleton block, because that lord can just tear apart my entire army. There is nothing I can throw at him that he won't laugh off. So, let's onto the game. He had first turn, and boy, what a first turn. Just a quick photo here showing his deployment so you can see a little more clearly. So we've got the dogs on the left, we've got the big unit of zombies on the right. The skeleton unit in the middle doesn't look as big as it actually is. That's 50 bleeding skeletons in the middle. He is short of models and was using a single skeleton put at the back to count where it actually gets up to. Likewise, what looks like an empty tray at the back, that's another 20 zombies plus a Necromancer. And obviously there's the Mortis engine and the corpse cart. So, here's turn 1. And, unbelievably, I let through Fun Hells. Big version of Fun Hells. I didn't quite consider how ruthless this really would be. And I was trying to stop some of the more dangerous spells from going off and raising zombies in my way and all of that good stuff. So, I'm trying to avoid getting into combat with that unit, and after he's marched his 8 inches and cast Fun Hells, it's right in my face. It's so close up, I have no way of avoiding this thing. Luckily, that doesn't mean I have no way of avoiding it with the units that matter. So, on to my turn 1. So now life gets interesting. I sent both Fleshhound units into the big zombie horde, and they actually did a fair job against it. I was quite impressed. I backed the hell off with the Bloodletters and the Plague Bearers because I can live a long, happy life without getting butchered by that big unit. The Fiend and the Furies now play a pivotal role in stopping him from basically taking on my entire army in one fell swoop. So he wants to hit the Fiend, he's welcome. He's going to have to overrun into the Furies if he really wants to deal with them. If he doesn't, he's just going to be delayed again and again and again. My Demonettes charge up to his direwolves, and they air swing. They do stuff all. A little bit of damage, as much back, and they just don't break the units. It's almost embarrassing. Makes you want to find someone to just pimp slap the little girls. Anyway, they did sweep overall. My shooting did a little bit, not too much. These Screamers did a fair job. They knocked the corpse cart down to 1 wound, and between the Screamers and the unit of Flamers on the left, they managed to knock the Coven Throne down to 2 wounds. So, hey, really impressive from the range boys. And we slowly start whittling a little bit off that back zombie horde. Still, that big zombie horde is going to take forever to grind down. Going to do it, and hey, I even managed to kill off a Necromancer. My oath, that bloody unit is just going to tar pit me forever.